The earliest known comic book was made in 1837, and since then, the comic book industry has slowly made its way into becoming one of the most recognizable forms of media out there today. It's also no stranger to controversy. Many comic books are based in universes that can have alternate worlds, so they can push a mainstream world that can be sold to audiences easily, and then they can put those same characters into an alternate timeline that's packed with disturbing content. As well as this, some comic books are just straight up disturbing or have some shocking moments to creep you out. Because of this, I've decided to compile a list of just that. So here are 5 shocking and disturbing moments from comic books. Number 1 is Joker. Joker was a graphic novel released in 2008 that was written by Brian Azzarello and illustrated by Lee Bermejo. It of course starred the Joker, who bore a resemblance to the same character in The Dark Knight. There is a good chance that the movie actually took inspiration from this novel, although it hasn't been confirmed. While they may have looked alike, these characters were quite different. While Heath Ledger's Joker was a disturbing and creepy villain, Azzarello's version was much darker. It was told from the perspective of one of his henchmen, which gives the reader some interesting angles to view the Joker through. He goes on a killing spree throughout the duration of this novel, and nobody is safe, not even his own men. This gives us some interesting and disturbing scenes, but one that stood out to most readers has to be the part with Monty, one of the Joker's former henchmen who now runs a nightclub. The Joker enters the nightclub but isn't satisfied with how it's being run. His punishment for Monty is brutal to say the least. He skins him alive, puts him on the main stage, and forces him to dance in front of the people he used to be the boss of. This is the first big action from the Joker, and it really sets the tone for the dark and gritty events that are going to happen in this graphic novel. Number 2 is Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are twins who were introduced in the X-Men series and mostly exist there. However, they were also featured in a limited comic book series called The Ultimates, which was a team of superheroes organized by Nick Fury. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch have a very close relationship, as most twins do, but something odd does seem to be going on in the first 2 entries of this trilogy. It is only in the 3rd edition of The Ultimates that we are given a definitive answer as to what is really going on between the two, and as you may have already guessed, they are partaking in an incestual relationship. Yeah, this is a weird one. Marvel aren't really strangers to controversy. Their comic books occasionally feature disturbing and gruesome content, but a full-blown romantic relationship between 2 twins was definitely unexplored territory for them. It took readers by surprise, as the two never had a romantic relationship in the past, and since this series was released, it hasn't happened again. Regardless, it resulted in a pretty interesting and compelling subplot, so it's fair to say that whatever the writers were aiming for paid off in the end. Number 3. The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is an immensely successful franchise, with 2 successful TV shows, a web series, and of course, the comic books that started it all. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world where most of the population has been infected with a virus that essentially turns them into zombies. Rick Grimes and his group of survivors travel from area to area trying to find some kind of a place where they can settle down for good. It's a reasonably dark concept, so it's not that surprising that the comics have some shocking moments. One of these moments happened when Rick and his group meet up with a character known as the Governor, a man who runs his own sanctuary with his own group of people. We quickly learn that there's more than likely something wrong with him when we find out that he's keeping his infected zombie-turned daughter locked away. Now, the TV show doesn't take this strange relationship too far, but in the comics it's on a whole other level. There is a moment in the story where the Governor actually kisses the zombie, which alludes to the fact that this may be a regular occurrence. It actually was a very effective way of telling the reader just how mentally unstable the Governor truly was. I mean, they sell it well in the TV show, but the comics really brings it up a notch, with this moment being the focal point of his depravity. Number 4 is Crossed. Like The Walking Dead, Crossed is another post-apocalyptic comic book series written by Garth Ennis and released in 2008. But while The Walking Dead has some controversial and disturbing moments, Crossed is on a different level entirely. In this series, there aren't necessarily zombies, but an infection has spread worldwide that makes the victims of it act out the most evil thoughts they can conjure up. Not only this, but they still have a basic level of intelligence, and most of them are able to wield firearms and drive cars. This makes for some insanely interesting and disturbing content. There are so many moments you could mention from this series, but one that stands out for most readers is a scene that features Harold Lore, a character who actually hasn't been infected, but uses the lawless land to act out his darkest thoughts. Well, there is a moment that's a bit darker than the others when Harold meets a man named Darwin and proceeds to not only cut off his face, but then wear it as a mask, all while sexually assaulting Darwin's girlfriend. While it is a disturbing scene, it's also an interesting one. Harold hasn't been affected by the disease, and yet still manages to be as insane and depraved as most of the Crossed. Number 5. Clarissa. Clarissa is a series of comic strips that were developed in the late 90s. They deal with extremely mature topics but do so in a very subtle way that slowly tells the story of Clarissa's not-so-normal family, although they are originally painted in that light. An example of this is when Clarissa's mom buys her a new teddy bear and tells her not to lose it this time. When Clarissa is in bed, the bear surprisingly comes to life and insists that she plays a game with him. However, Clarissa doesn't seem to be in any kind of mood to do so. Her father then enters the room and the teddy bear pretends to be a normal toy. This is when the scene skips and brings us back to the bedroom after the father has left. The bear now seems insistent on leaving after what he had just witnessed. This hints towards some kind of physical or mental abuse that the father may be inflicting. The reader's suspicions are unfortunately confirmed as the comic continues and we get a more definitive and a more disturbing answer when we finish each strip. The comic deals with many of the family's issues, mostly that they seem to be ignoring the terrible thing that the father is doing to his daughter. But also a lot of them seem to put the blame on her in some way, shape or form, not directly but through different means. While it is a creepy read, it's definitely worth checking out. It's well put together and cleverly tells the story of a terrible thing that's happening all across the world. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed or were creeped out. I'll leave a link down below to more disturbing fives that you can check out, and you can click one of these boxes if you want to watch another video. Don't forget to subscribe for similar content. You can follow me on Twitter, which is @deburk321. But like I said, that's all for now. As always, until next time. Haha.